On the agenda today is a discussion about platforms and e-platforms relating to procurement from research infrastructures, in particular the big science infrastructures. I'm joined by Paolo and Toon, and maybe Paolo, do you just want to say a few words about yourself first?
As you wish. Okay, I can start. So my name is Paolo Kunz, as you know, and I am the ILO for the Italian ILO for Fusion for Energy, but I'm also the chair of PERIA Network board. The PERIA is the Pan-European Research Infrastructure ILO Association. So it's something like a network of all ILOs coming from different kind of big science organization. FOE, ITER, or CERN, ESS, and so on. And I'm really pleased to try to give my point of view in this debate. Hi. Nikolai, are you there?
Sorry, I was unmuted. Now again. Yeah, I wanted to pass on the torch to Toon.
Okay, so my name is Toon Verhoeven from the Netherlands. As mentioned, indeed, I was the ILO for ESS for the Netherlands, and I also was for a long time the ILO for ITER, for Fusion for Energy. But as more or less already indicated, that was history. Today is the last day of my active working life. You maybe can see that on the screen behind me. So I'm at the office for the last time, and you were more used to another kind of background, I think, and that I will use that in the future as well. So indeed, my retirement will start next week, and so that's one of the reasons why my ILO work is coming to an end. But I will, at least for the moment, remain at some of the ENRIITCH activities. But I also will stay on the board of PERIA, and I'm also still a member of the organization committee of the Big Science Business Forum. And so I'm still looking very much forward to do this Big Science Business Forum. And I hope that we will meet in real at some moment. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, yes. I'm sure we will meet in real life, also hopefully very soon. So I'm Nikolai, and I'm, as indicated on the screen, I'm the ILO for Denmark at CERN. I'm also ILO at ESRF and European XFEL, and have earlier been at ILL. So we're mentioning a lot of facilities here, and the reason I also settled for Fusion for Energy, ESS, and CERN is actually part of the point here. So just want to highlight the Big Science Business Forum that was held in 2018. So that was actually the first time that we sort of really brought together what we now call the big science market. So there we have these facilities, CERN and ESS and Fusion for Energy, actually teaming up and saying, okay, the companies that supply to CERN, they're also relevant for Fusion for Energy. So we should do some joint activities and promote these business opportunities in a joint manner. And that's the thought that led to the Big Science Business Forum concept, and it looks very promising for the next event, except that of course the COVID-19 put a stick into that wheel, but there will certainly be a next one. I also have to make the point here that this means that once these things were started and we started looking at it as a big science market, then all these different organizations, they had their own ways of handling procurement. If you know something about how businesses are categorized and organized, there's something called the NACE codes, which divides business into certain areas. then as these facilities came about, they saw that, okay, that was not quite fulfilling. So, I mean, for example, CERN made their own system of procurement areas to make it easier to put different tenders into different categories so that it could easier find the right companies. And in fact, a lot of these facilities have either adopted some system or developed a new system. So the situation right now is that we have these different procurement codes from the facilities, and the tenders are being announced in different places. And for us ILOs, we actually recognize that this is a barrier for some of our companies, that it's not so easy for them. It's an extra complication when they're navigating in this market. So that's going to be the topic of today. Before we get going, could I ask you just to go on to Mentee and enter the code, which is, okay, I guess it's visible on the screen, 759883.1. And then just indicate if you are staff at a research infrastructure, if you're staff working with procurement, or if you are an ILO, or if you are in fact other.
May I just interrupt for those who are not familiar with the app? So we are using a tool called Mentee, and so you can go through either your browser or your phone. You go on your navigator and you go on mentee.com, and once there you will be asked to put in a code, which is the 7598831, and let us know if there's any if you have any difficulties, we can help.
I think I set it up so people can actually select two, because obviously if you are working with procurement at a research infrastructure, you can tick both boxes. So how many are we at the meeting, Angelot? 30?
Yeah, but some are
so
not
we
twice.
could get a couple of more answers. The Mentee will continue, so even if you don't make it in time and put your status here, then there will be more questions. So I certainly invite you to visit the site. Okay, but it seems we're approximately 50-50 people from the research infrastructures and people that are ILOs. So that's good. To have a good discussion. I'm going to move forward and just show two results from the survey you did. I don't know how many of you actually took the survey, but ENRIITC had a big survey for all the stakeholders in this area. And these two answers, they come from the survey that was posed to the persons at the research infrastructures responsible for the interactions with industry. Well, the first question asked that when they are announcing tenders, then do they announce it on their own web page or in another web page, or they don't do it at all? And I'll comment on the category of research infrastructures that said no, and that's basically the ones that actually don't have a procurement department, because research infrastructures covers quite a variety of different facilities. But what we see here is among the ones that said yes, there are some that only do it on their own web page, and there are others that actually use a separate source to put out their tenders, and this could be the tenders electronic daily, the TED page, or maybe something else. So then we had a question where we were very curious what would be the answer, and that's the focus for today. Do you see an advantage if RIs would announce their upcoming tenders for suppliers on a single common web page? And there you see actually 2/3 said yes and 1/3 said no. Bear in mind though that some of these do not have procurement, so they're not the ones making the decision. What was really interesting though was that after this question we added a category where people were allowed to comment. Either, you know, I said yes because of this, or I said no because of this. I'm going to flash the next page to see that really a lot of people had a lot of opinions about this. So I'm just showing how many people actually made a comment here. I don't want to go into the details, which is also very small font, so we'll not be able to. Rather, I want to turn to my last slide, which is it's a very subjective way of putting it, but the question is, how positive are you towards these common procurement codes or joint procurement platforms in this area? And if you choose a low number, then you think that this case has more barriers than benefits. Or if you choose a high number, then you actually feel that there are more benefits to be gained from these harmonizing the procurement codes or having joint e-platforms than there are barriers. So I invite you back into the mentee. We should be able to follow online what people are answering. So I'll give you just a minute or two just to answer, and then afterwards, as I said, this is my last slide. Afterwards, I'll invite you to make some comments and see how do we move forward in this way. Do people feel strongly or not strongly? But let's see. I will also vote myself. Also be interesting to see how polar it is. We can already see that we'll have the full spectrum engaged. And so far, 11 people have answered, I can tell. Let's get a few more answers in. Is the mentee causing anyone problems? Let me ask about that. May be able to do some online tech support.
It works fine.
I'm not having access, but okay. It's the only one, so maybe I'm a bit clumsy.
Did you try the www.mentee.com?
Yep.
We certainly see a tendency that actually a lot of people see benefits rather than barriers.
Sorry, may I have again, or is there in the chat or somewhere the code to get into the?
Yeah,
into
the code is
on the
75.
Okay, 75.
It's on the top. It's on the top of the page as well.
I'll send you to in the chat. 7598831.
831. Great, thanks.
Good. Okay, but let's open up the floor for some discussions and some points.
Nikolai,
One of my
do you see the questions in the chat? I don't know if you see.
I don't see, okay. But I can find it. Yeah, so Larry is asking why are codes so important?
And
Arne offered an answer that the codes are not so important for suppliers, but looking for keywords is good. I'll say in some cases, a supplier will say that, okay, we're supplying something that fits into this code, and then they can look for how that matches. Good, but it's a good point that keywords are equally important. Yeah, so who wants, one of my co-organizers, do you want to add your opinion here?
Yes, if you wish, I can just start, because from my point of view, I'm Paolo. From my point of view, that is the main topic. We just spoke about this kind of topic also during the working group about cooperation ILOs and ICOs. That one that is managed by Belen and by Silvia, for instance. And we have this kind of speech, and also Victor was involved, so then he also can add something. Which is the main point from my point of view. I can understand, and so some people that are used to draft procurement just underline the point that to have just a common e-platform for procurement, there could be really you can have some problems, because it could be a mess to find the different kind of procurements, the different for the sites, for the kind of procurement and so on. From the other side, from an ILO point of view, of course, that could be useful because that gives the opportunity to different companies to have the only one source where to find the right information. But I can understand the point from the procurement guys that it could be really a mess. On the other side, for me, the really important things is about common procurement codes, because that could be sound strange, but if you are used to work with different kind of big science organization, you can see that they're using a lot of time, they're using different kind of codes to call the same kind of things. And that is it could be for some platforms, for some newcomers, that could be also to find some problems. If we want to give, we want to try to build a common market about big science, that could be the first step. It should be to have the same kind of codes, because, for instance, I'm used for FRE, for Fusion for Energy, to ask to companies to answer to market survey. That means something that just to know which is the situation in the market. But I know that in CERN, they call that in another way. And when I'm talking about with some kind of companies that are more used to work with CERN, they cannot understand what does it mean. And that is just one example. It's the same kind of things also for components, just which kind of name they has to take, and also for the procedures. The procedures, that could be really important to use the same kind of code, the same kind of names, that it means the same kind of procedures when it applies, of course. We have different kind of organizations, and also the nature of organization could be different, but it could be really, really useful just to keep it easy, at least use the same kind of codes so that everybody can understand what they want to, what they are looking for, and what they are going to apply for. That is my point of view. The second step could be to have some joint e-platforms for procurement. Both of that, for sure, from an industrial point of view, could be really, really useful.
Okay, but Paul, could just, we were talking about to have harmonized procedures as well.
I'm talking, the first step from my point of view is the name of the same kind of names. So
yeah, exactly.
If you just use
market survey,
or you can use another word, of course, but just a common one. The second one, the codes, just say the numbers, and then also for components. And third point, that maybe it's harder because the different organizations use also some different procedures. Because, for instance, I know Fusion for Energy, they need to use the European procedures from the European Union. That is not the case for CERN, for instance, because it's not a part. It's just an international organization. But if there is possible to find some solution to harmonize where it's possible, could be also that useful. Afterwards, we can talk about to have some joint platforms, because that is the second step from my point of view. It's much more important to have some common names where to start.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Paul.
This is my point of view.
So, yeah, I see Victor was raising his hand. So
yes, thank you, Nikolai. Okay, I agree with Paolo in that the procedures, I think that it is a dream to have them harmonized. We have different systems at ESA, CER, ourselves, so I think that this is not possible. On the other hand, I agree in the naming, for instance, the use of names and the codes, this could be harmonized. In fact, I remember well when we were having the first meeting for the Big Science Business Forum, the one that we had in Copenhagen. One of the first elements or the first topics on the table that I remember that Leonardo, my boss, was bringing to the table was actually the harmonization of procurement as much as possible. something on which we have not yet done anything because it is very difficult and you need the very solid backup from your organization and really a will from all the organizations to come together. I had some contacts last year with Cristina Lara, who is around, and just to take to see the approach from the CERN and see whether we could be using, for instance, the coding that the CERN is using in their procurement, something that I have been working on during this year at Fusion for Energy. And I can tell you that even inside my own organization is very difficult. We have several different codes across different departments, and it is a headache. So I'm really chapeau for the CERN that they managed to put it all together, because I don't manage to do it even at home. Having said that, I believe that we should really commit to do something along these lines, because it will be in our favor, it will be useful for us and for the industry for sure. As regards the single procurement tool, this having regard that we have different systems, it is also difficult, but this doesn't prevent the possibility to have a single procurement dashboard, or a place where you are announcing this. There is a difference between a place where you are disclosing the information and a place where you are really doing the procurement as such. So the first step, which would be having a place where all big science organizations are putting together their procurement opportunities, the announcements. On this, I don't think that this would be very, very complicated. For sure, as usual, you need resources, you need commitment, but I believe that as a first step, it could be a very good compromise to begin building from this onward, and then see how much this can evolve little by little. And on this, I think that Fusion for Energy will be willing to support. And finally, we have checked into the electronic procurement platform of the European Union, because they are implementing one for the agencies and bodies. It is called ePrior, and it is a bit, well, it is not very developed. So I think that they only have so far open procedures, which is not addressing our needs. And this is why we move into a proprietary platform that we are paying every year, which is called EU Supply, which has on one hand the advantage of being open to everybody to be used. So other organizations are using the same platform, but it cannot be very much customized. So it is, you take it or you leave it. It is not very flexible, and we are having problems with this platform. So maybe if there were a commercial solution out there offering e-procurement that can be used by big science organizations, maybe it will be good. I don't know, maybe a business opportunity for someone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for adding that. So answers to Victor's or Paulo's comments, or even new points. There's some activity in the chat.
Yeah, well, Nikolai, and then perhaps you haven't noticed that I have also raised my hand.
I didn't notice. Sorry, Arne.
Yeah.
But please go ahead.
Thank you.
Maybe we can unshare the screen, then we see more people. Nikolai, if you unshare your screen, that would be nice, actually.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
There you go.
I gave a very low ranking to common procurement codes. And that's because of the experiences I have had with the Danish companies in trying to get them to register to RI supplier databases and so on, especially those RIs that are using the common procurement vocabulary. My experience is that most of those codes are made by national authorities to make it more easy to report export statistics, and in some cases even for tax purposes. They don't seem very relevant for most of the companies that I have been in contact with, especially because the big science market for many of those companies is not a very significant part it is something that they have a 1 or 2 small orders per year, and the big science market in total is around 5 to 10% of their turnover. So they don't want to try to learn codes that are not relevant for them and that they do not use in other contexts. What I would propose is that we, perhaps a little bit in the lines of what Paulo suggested earlier, that we try to focus on identifying some standardized keywords so that you just at a glance can see what do the IRs want, what are the type of components that are asked for, what kind of services and so on, and that you perhaps could make a common dictionary for all RIs to make it easier for customers to access it. And that taps into one of the other things that I believe is very important for RIs to get better results from their procurement activities, and that is to use the tools from the standardization world. I mean, if we can have one set of standards for feed-throughs instead of each facility inventing its own, it would probably make it a lot easier for companies and a lot cheaper for RIs to work in that way. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the comments. We are running out of time. Is there someone else from the big science facilities that want to make a final comment to this? I'll add that what you presented here, as you know, it's being recorded, so we'll also take this into consideration when we're making some recommendations about how to go forward. But it's very uplifting to hear Victor's comments about where the possibilities that Fusion for Energy see, and hear that you're already in a dialogue with CERN. Good. Ilaria, did you raise your hand?
I was wondering if anybody could make some examples of existing initiatives. I heard before e-supply. Would there be others that you would know of at a general level, not at the RI level? Something virtuous, something that we could explore to see if it can be improved or can be taken as an example and possibly enlarged.
Yeah, and also please, I mean, you're welcome to use the chat to just write a name, and then we'll investigate it.
I mean, I'm not one comment or question. I mean, that we explored a few years ago is the possibility, and I think Victor touched on the update, so to speak, on that, is what does the European publication journal TED basically provide on a daily basis? Because, I mean, many of the tenders that the research infrastructures publish, when they're above 200,000 euros, they would be published pan-European wide. And if there was whatever kind of dedicated search box on TED that would allow the companies to see that's linked to a research infrastructure, you would have already one key word in place that is easy findable. So I don't know if anybody is aware of what the situation is on TED, so to speak. Maybe something to explore, because there the European Publication Office is in charge for running it.
Good. Yeah, I did pick up ePrior, EU Supply, and TED as well, so we'll certainly investigate that. But I think that's all for now. Do you have any announcements here in the end, Anne-Charlotte?
No specific announcement. We are so thank you very much, everyone, for today. We will keep you tuned for next week because we are still waiting for some confirmation, and we are still inviting you strongly to come up with a topic. If you want to host an episode, please don't hesitate, and we still have some available slots in March. So we are really happy to help you preparing and hosting an episode. So thank you very much for today. And we keep in touch. We will inform you via mailing and on the website and social media for next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.